The American dream belongs to everyone, not just the privileged. That simple statement holds within it the power to transform a nation. It is not a slogan to be whispered in comfortable boardrooms or printed on glossy brochures. No, it is a declaration, a moral calling that echoes through every valley and mountain of this land. It is the belief that no matter where you were born, what color your skin is, what accent you speak with, or how humble your beginnings, you are somebody asterisk. You are a child of the Creator, deserving of dignity, deserving of opportunity, deserving of a future that honors your humanity. Too often, the dream has been locked behind gates and guarded by systems that pretend to be fair but operate to divide. Too often, the wealth of the land has been hoarded by the few while the many are told to work harder, to climb faster, to dream smaller. But I say to you, the American dream was never meant to be a treasure chest for the powerful. It was meant to be a living covenant for all asterisk. The farmer in the field, the teacher in the classroom, the janitor in the hallway, the nurse in the clinic, all are equal shareholders in that promise. We must stop pretending that access to the dream is determined by luck, inheritance, or status. It must be a right, not a reward for conformity or silence. When a child in a broken neighborhood believes they cannot rise above their surroundings, the dream is in crisis. When a single mother works 2 jobs and still cannot feed her children, the dream is wounded. And when a young graduate carries the weight of crushing debt simply because they dared to learn, the dream is compromised. But it does not have to be this way. America has never been perfect, but it has always been filled with people who believe asterisk. People who stand in the gap and say, I will not rest until the dream is real for all of us. They are the voices that speak for the voiceless, the feet that march for the weary, the hearts that break for the forgotten. These dreamers, not the cynics, are the true patriots of this land. You see, a dream that is not shared becomes a nightmare for someone else. When we build fences instead of bridges, we are not protecting the dream, we are imprisoning it. When we lift ourselves by pushing others down, we are not rising, we are only rearranging the injustice. The American dream cannot survive in a land where some are asked to crawl while others are born with wings. No, it can only thrive in a place where every soul has space to soar. So let it be known, we reject the lie that success is a race with only one winner. We reject the myth that prosperity for some requires poverty for others. We believe in abundance, not in scarcity. We believe that when the tide rises, it should lift every boat and we believe that the dream does not fade when it is shared. It grows brighter, stronger, more powerful. Let those in power hear this truth. Let those who feel forgotten feel this fire. Let every soul from every background rise with the knowledge that they were never meant to merely survive. They were meant to thrive. The American dream is not the property of the elite, nor is it a fading memory of a romantic past. It is a living, breathing promise that is only fulfilled when all are free to live with purpose, with dignity, and with hope. Economic justice is a moral necessity. It is not a policy preference, not a partisan issue, not a talking point to be debated on cable television. It is a call rooted in the very heart of our shared humanity. For a society to be truly free, truly fair, truly faithful to its highest ideals, it must ensure that no man or woman is crushed by the weight of poverty while others dine in excess. It must ensure that labor is honored, that wages are livable, and that no one is left behind simply because they were born without wealth. There is something profoundly wrong when people who work the hardest are paid the least. When the sweat of a construction worker, the patience of a caregiver, or the service of a factory hand is met with struggle rather than security, we must ask, what kind of justice is that? When CEO received bonuses that could feed entire communities while minimum wage earners can't afford rent, we are no longer dealing with economics, we are dealing with a moral failure. Our conscience must not be shaped by stock markets, but by the faces of our neighbors. It is not enough to measure a nation's success by its gross domestic product. We must also measure the gross injustice of its poverty. We must ask how many families go hungry, how many children sleep in cars, how many elders must choose between food and medicine. Until the answer is none, until the gap is closed, until dignity reaches every doorstep, our work is not finished. We must understand that economic justice is not about taking from one to give to another. It is about building a system where all can flourish. It is about equity, not envy. It is about ensuring that opportunity does not knock only for the privileged few, but for the many who have been knocking on closed doors their entire lives. It is about recognizing that wealth without compassion is a curse, and profit without purpose is hollow. We live in a land where the dream was to be free, to pursue happiness, to raise families, to build futures. But how can one pursue happiness when weighed down by student debt? How can one raise a family on starvation wages? How can one build a future while living paycheck to paycheck, always one emergency away from ruin? These are not abstract questions. They are lived realities for millions of our fellow Americans. It is time we reimagine the economy not as a cold machine, but as a human promise. A promise that says if you work, you eat. If you strive, you rise. If you contribute, you are valued, not just in word, but in compensation. We must lift the floor beneath the poor and raise the ceiling of opportunity for all. We must stop applauding wealth that exploits and start uplifting labor that builds. Justice in the economy means a livable wage, affordable health care, dignified housing, and access to education. It means ensuring that no child's dreams are limited by the zip code they are born into. It means that the janitor and the judge, the teacher and the tech developer, the cashier and the congressman, all are seen as vital, all are treated with fairness, all are recognized as part of this great American story. This is the dream that must awaken in our time, not merely a dream of riches, but a dream of righteousness, not merely jobs, but justice, not simply commerce, but compassion. For if we build an economy that works only for the few, then we have not built a society. We have built a machine that grinds down the very soul of the people, and the soul of America is not for sale. Racial equality is inseparable from national unity. A house divided cannot stand, and a nation split along the fault lines of race cannot call itself united. We cannot pledge allegiance to liberty and justice for all while injustice still wears the mask of skin color. We cannot celebrate freedom while generations still carry the weight of chains, not of iron, but of inequality, prejudice, and systemic silence. If we are to fulfill the promise of the American dream, we must confront the truth that racial injustice is not a shadow of the past. It is a present wound, and it bleeds in every corner where opportunity is denied, where voices are silenced, where justice is delayed. America's greatness does not lie in her monuments or her markets, but in her people, in every shade, from every background. When we see one another not as threats but as brothers and sisters, we begin to heal the soul of the nation. But we must not confuse peace with quiet or order with justice. True unity is not the absence of noise, but the presence of fairness. It is not achieved by silencing the cries of the oppressed, but by answering them with courage and compassion. The American dream cannot belong to one race, one class, or one culture. It was never meant to be the inheritance of the few. It is the birthright of the many. When we talk about racial equality, we are not talking about handouts or favoritism. We are talking about what is owed not just by law, but by conscience. We are talking about the right to walk through the world without fear, to be treated with dignity, to be seen, heard, and believed. We are talking about tearing down walls that were never meant to stand and building bridges that should have been built generations ago. Some may say we've made progress, and we have, but progress is not the same as justice. A wound half healed is still a wound, a promise half kept is still broken. Let us not become drunk with the wine of gradualism. Let us not settle for crumbs when we were promised a feast of freedom. We must demand a deeper change, a change not only in policy but in perspective, not only in systems but in souls. In every city, in every rural town, in every state of this republic, we must declare that Black lives matter, that Indigenous lives matter, that Latino, Asian, and all lives of color matter, not as a political statement, but as a human truth. We must teach our children that equality is not a favor you grant. It is a right you respect. We must challenge our institutions, our schools, our workplaces, our hearts, and ask, are we building a nation where race no longer defines your worth, your opportunity, your future? Racial equality is not a burden to bear. It is a gift we give to the next generation. It is a declaration that we will not rest until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. It is an affirmation that every dream deferred is a loss to us all, and every injustice ignored is a crack in the foundation of our democracy. If we want a strong America, we need a united America. And if we want a united America, we must root out racism wherever it hides, in our policies, in our politics, in our perceptions. For when the least among us rises, we all rise. When the most oppressed among us breathes free, we all breathe easier. Racial equality is not a side issue. It is the sole issue. It is the test of our morality, the proof of our patriotism, and the doorway to our destiny as one nation, under God, indivisible. Education and opportunity are the engines of the dream. They are the twin pillars that lift individuals from limitation to liberation, from poverty to possibility, from silence to significance. No dream can soar in the absence of knowledge, and no soul can flourish when opportunity is locked behind gates guarded by privilege. If we are to speak honestly about the American dream, we must understand that it cannot be built on ignorance, nor can it be sustained by exclusion. It must rest on the promise that every child, regardless of background or birthplace, has access to a future shaped by learning, lit by opportunity, and grounded in justice. Education is not just the memorization of facts. It is the awakening of power. It is the light that shines in dark places. It is the tool that frees the mind from fear and the heart from despair. When we fail to invest in education, we are not just failing our children. We are forfeiting our future. A neglected schoolhouse is a symptom of a neglected dream. A crumbling classroom is not just a broken building. It is a broken promise. And when opportunity is doled out by zip code, when quality education depends on wealth and not on worth, we are not living in a land of equality. We are living in a land of excuses. Opportunity must not be rationed like bread in a famine. It must not be reserved for the chosen few. It must be the air we breathe as a free people. Whether you are born in the suburbs or in the shadows, whether your parents came on a slave ship or a steamship, whether you grew up with plenty or with pain, your chance to rise must not be limited by the circumstances of your birth. For every untapped mind, every stifled talent, every wasted gift is not just a loss to one life. It is a loss to us all. We cannot claim to believe in the American dream and then close the doors of college to those who cannot afford it. We cannot speak of freedom while students drown in debt. We cannot talk of hope while children sit in overcrowded classrooms, lacking books, counselors, and care. The inequality of education is the inequality of destiny. And if we are to move forward as one people, we must tear down the barriers that separate the educated from the excluded, the privileged from the passed over. But education alone is not enough. We must pair it with real opportunity, jobs that pay, careers that matter, and paths that are open not only to those with connections, but to all who are committed. We must invest in job training, in apprenticeship, in entrepreneurship. We must nurture dreams not only in classrooms, but in communities. And we must make it clear that opportunity is not a gift to be granted. It is a right to be protected. This dream of opportunity must stretch across generations. It must reach the single mother who wants to go back to school. It must embrace the young man who learns better with his hands than from a textbook. It must include the immigrant who sees America not as a destination, but as a chance to build something better. When we build a society where learning is lifelong and opportunity is limitless, then we are not only dreaming, we are doing, and so we must fight, not with fists, but with focus, not with hate, but with heart. We must demand that every school becomes a sanctuary of hope. We must insist that every child, regardless of race, region, or religion, is seen not as a statistic, but as a soul with purpose. We must make it clear to every elected official, every policymaker, every community leader that we will not be satisfied until education and opportunity walk hand in hand through every neighborhood, lighting up every future, unlocking every potential. Civic engagement is the path to realization. The American dream is not realized in silence. It is not fulfilled through passivity. It is built, sustained, and protected by the voices, the votes, and the actions of everyday people. Freedom has never been a gift passed down from the top. It has always been a prize lifted by the hands of the many. It is not enough to dream. We must do asterisk. We must participate. We must rise. And we must engage with the systems that shape our lives. For a democracy without the people is nothing but a stage for the powerful to play pretend. But when the people speak, when the people show up, when the people vote, protest, organize, and demand, then that democracy becomes alive. There is nothing more powerful than a citizen who understands their worth. A man or woman who knows that their voice matters is more dangerous to injustice than any weapon, more threatening to oppression than any army. Civic engagement is not simply a civic duty. It is a sacred responsibility. It is how we honor the sacrifices of those who marched, bled, and died so we could be heard. It is how we say to the world, we are not asleep, we are awake. We are not bystanders. We are the authors of this nation's next chapter. When we vote, we do not just choose candidates. We choose policies. We choose priorities. We choose the kind of country we want to build. When we attend town halls, write to representatives, and organize in our communities, We are reminding the powers that be that we are watching, we are thinking, and we are ready. Power unchecked becomes power abused. But when people engage, power must listen. Let us remember that every great change in this nation's history was ignited by the flame of civic action. The abolition of slavery did not begin in the halls of Congress. It began in the hearts of men and women who said enough is enough. Women did not win the right to vote by asking politely. They organized, marched, and persisted. The civil rights movement did not wait for permission. It created the pressure that forced a reckoning. Civic engagement is not a luxury. It is the lifeblood of progress. Yet today, far too many feel their voice is too small, their vote too weak, their presence too insignificant. That is the lie that those in power hope we will believe. Because when the people believe they cannot change things, the status quo remains. But the truth is this: every movement begins with one step, every revolution begins with one voice, and every dream becomes real when enough people dare to act on it. To engage civically is to say that this country belongs to all of us. It is to refuse to be silenced by cynicism or paralyzed by fear. It is to challenge injustice, to speak truth to power, and to never accept what is when we know what could be. Civic engagement is the hammer that cracks the walls of corruption, the chisel that carves new paths where none existed. It is how we protect the rights of the vulnerable, amplify the needs of the forgotten, and remind this nation that progress is not automatic, it is earned. We must engage not only at the ballot box, but in our neighborhoods, our schools, our city councils, our churches, our unions. We must teach our children that democracy is not something they inherit. It is something they must build. We must create a culture where engagement is expected, where participation is praised, and where apathy is no longer an option. The dream lives in every heart that dares to stand up and speak out. It rises not when we wait, but when we work, not when we complain, but when we commit. Love and nonviolence are the only lasting foundations of progress. History has taught us that hatred may win battles, but it can never win the soul of a nation. Violence may silence a voice, but it can never quiet the truth. True and lasting change, change that reaches not only laws but the human heart, has always been built on the foundation of love. Not a weak love, not a passive love, but a courageous love, a love that chooses peace even when anger seems justified, a love that reaches across lines of division and says, "You are my brother, you are my sister, your pain is my pain, and your freedom is bound to mine." Nonviolence is not a tactic, it is a philosophy, it is a way of life. It says that we will not become the very thing we are fighting against. It says that we will never let bitterness overtake our hope or hatred consume our conviction. It is the refusal to allow oppression to turn us into oppressors, the rejection of the lie that might makes right. In the face of injustice, nonviolence stands not with clenched fists, but with open hands, hands ready to build, to lift, to heal. In a world where anger is amplified and outrage is monetized, it takes deep strength to respond with love. It takes maturity to listen when we want to shout. It takes discipline to forgive when we've been wronged. But that is the higher road. That is the deeper calling. And that is the path that has led every movement that ever bent the arc of history toward justice. When we love even those who stand against us, we are not weak. We are strong in the way that only the truth can be strong. Progress built on hate is no progress at all. It merely shifts the weight of oppression from one group to another, but progress rooted in love creates room for everyone. It doesn't seek revenge, it seeks restoration. It doesn't divide, it binds. That is why love is not just a moral principle, it is a strategic one. For when people see that we are motivated not by rage but by righteousness, not by resentment but by reconciliation, they cannot help but be moved. They may disagree with our message, but they cannot deny our humanity. They may resist our demands, but they cannot escape our dignity. Nonviolence is not simply avoiding physical harm. It is a commitment to building systems of peace. It means confronting injustice without mirroring its cruelty. It means creating communities where conflict leads to understanding, not destruction. It means that even in protest, we honor the humanity of those who oppose us. It means we believe in the possibility of redemption, even for those who have lost their way. Love is the language that reaches where speeches cannot. It speaks in action, in sacrifice, in service. It feeds the hungry, lifts the fallen, visits the prisoner, defends the voiceless. It is the greatest weapon in the arsenal of justice, and it has never failed when wielded with discipline and faith. The power of love cannot be legislated, but it can transform laws. It cannot be bought, but it can reshape economies. It cannot be measured, but it can move mountains. The dream of America will never be fully realized until we choose love over fear and peace over power. That dream does not rise on the back of tanks or echo in the crack of gunfire. It rises when neighbors stand together in compassion, when enemies meet as humans, when justice is not demanded with hate but declared with hope. Love is not soft, it is fierce. It does not retreat from struggle, it leads it. And nonviolence is not the absence of tension, but the presence of moral force. It is the mightiest force we have, and the only one that can lead us toward a future worthy of our children's dreams.